Are you someone who struggles to say no, to set boundaries and push back on unreasonable requests? It might be that you feel guilty about the idea of disappointing others, or worried about what other people will think of you if you don't work harder than everyone else. And as a result of saying yes to everything, well, then you have no space for anything. Space to slow down, to rest, to be still, and care for yourself. So this video is about how to say
No!
What was that? How to say
No!
How to say
No!
I mean, I've coached hundreds of professionals who tell me the same thing, that they struggle to say no, and as a result of that, they're totally stretched for time. So in this video, I want to talk about the science of why we struggle to say no. I want to help you accept that no is emotional work and give you practical strategies to make space by saying no in a thoughtful, professional way. I've also written an ebook and an audiobook about how to say no for a greater yes. It's a fantastic resource. I've put heaps of time and effort into it, and I would love to offer it to you for free as a gift to help you in your journey to say no. Simply visit spacemakers.au/no. That's spacemakers.au/no. The link is in the description. But let me start with a story. It's a prehistoric story about a man named Ugg. Ugg was born at a time when people lived in caves and foraged for food. Life was hard and survival was difficult. But Ugg was a particularly prickly character, an individual you might say, with a particularly bad habit of always saying no. When his family ventured out to gather branches for a shelter, well then Ugg consistently refused to help out. When his brothers went hunting for food, well, he adamantly refused to help out. Now, as you can imagine, it didn't take long for the tribe to start to resent Ugg. I mean, he wasn't a team player, and eventually the elders of the tribe made the hard decision to cast him out of the tribe into the unforgiving wilderness. All alone, without the protection of a community, Ugg faced the bitter truth that saying no was a bad idea. It led to hunger, cold, sickness, loneliness, and eventually an untimely death. Bob-omb. And this lesson was passed down to others in the tribe. Don't be like Ugg. Work hard, say yes, go the extra mile for the community. That's how you survive. Okay, now let's fast forward a few thousand years and meet Jane. She's a busy manager in a global company, stretched for time, overworked, habitually busy, and interestingly, a descendant of Ugg's tribe. Unlike Ugg, Jane always says yes. She responds to every email, accepts every new meeting, takes on every new project. She always gets things done, even if she has to work late at night and on the weekends, because the idea of letting people down riddles her with guilt. And this is costing her big time, impacting her health, her family, her friendships, and her happiness. You see, there is a cost to saying yes to everything. In an age of infinity scrolling, there is always more to do. More messages, more emails, more meetings, more tasks. It never ends. And when we struggle to say no, we end up so overloaded and stretched thin that we run out of space in our lives. So why do we do it? Why does Jane struggle to say no despite her overloaded work? Why is it so hard for her to set healthy boundaries at work when it's clearly impacting time with her loved ones? And how does all this relate to her connection, genetically, with her ancestor, Ugg? Productivity author Cal Newport, in his fantastic book Slow Productivity, sheds light on why the majority of knowledge workers are perpetually overloaded. According to Newport, most knowledge workers are busy. We're too busy, we're overloaded, but there is a trend to our busyness, with most workers reporting that we're overloaded by about 20%, leading to chronic stress. This 20% overload phenomenon isn't limited to any one profession. I mean, engineers are overloaded by 20%, teachers are overloaded by 20%, nurses are overloaded by 20%, even productivity consultants like myself are sometimes overloaded by 20%. So what's going on? I mean, it's highly unlikely, according to Newport, that managers all around the world in different professions just happen to overload their workers by 20%. So here's where Ugg and Jane come in. Our brains have evolved through years of genetic selection to gain pleasure by pleasing others. That is, to connect with people as part of a wider, broad social network. Conversely, we feel pain, real pain, when someone close to us dies, or when we feel we've been isolated or shunned or shamed from a group of people. And this is how our brains are wired. For example, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, or DACC, is a part of the brain that is activated with both physical pain and social rejection. It's the same system. And because we feel pain when we disappoint others, well, then we avoid that feeling where possible. And that's why we find it so hard to say no. In other words, saying no is emotional and it's painful. We feel guilt or shame when we think we might let others down. And this explains our 20% overload phenomenon. Most people say yes to everything until they reach a breaking point, which is about 20% more than capacity. This is where we start to experience real pain because of our yeses. We're overloaded, we're stretched for capacity, working on weekends, never able to keep on top of our never-ending to-do lists. And at this point, we feel justified in pushing back and setting boundaries because our real experience of pain becomes greater than the perceived experience of disappointing others in the future. And as a result, we live in this perpetual state of overload and chronic stress. In this way, our prehistoric brains, our habitual tendency to say yes, isn't well suited to an always-on digital society. But once you recognize that avoiding no's is about avoiding the fear of pain and that it doesn't work, then you can start making smart choices about how to say no for a greater yes. So in the apt words of James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, when you say yes, you are saying no to every other option. No is a decision. Yes is a responsibility. Be careful what and who you say yes to. It'll shape your day, your career, your family, and your life. In other words, you cannot avoid saying no because every yes is actually a no to something else. Take on a new project and you're actually saying no to reading a good book, or playing board games with your children, or wandering along the beach and enjoying the sunshine. In other words, every yes has a cost somewhere down the line. So you might as well be intentional in shaping your no's for a greater yes. So what can you do about this? If you feel overloaded and stretched and lacking space in your life because of too many yeses, well, how can you learn to set better boundaries on your time? Well, the first step is to acknowledge the reality that saying no is emotional work. And that's okay. I mean, if you think about it, almost anything worthwhile in life has a certain level of pain associated with it. Think of public speaking, or getting fit, or asking someone out on a first date, or starting a business, or learning to be a parent, or trying to convince you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. But if we avoid life because it's painful, well, then we won't get too far. Please subscribe to my channel.
No!
Here's the thing. When we accept that saying no and setting boundaries is emotionally painful, and it's a good type of pain, well, then we can grow. I mean, it's the type of pain that will mature you and stretch you and help you become a better person. This type of pain is worth practicing. When you feel guilt or worry or anxiety about the fear of letting people down, well, remember this is part of the journey of making space for a better life. I mean, these feelings come and go, so learn to accept them and move forward. The benefits of making space and saying no for a greater yes is worth the emotional feelings that happen along the way. The second thing I'd recommend is to be kind on yourself. When people struggle to set boundaries and care for themselves, it's often because they genuinely care about other people. And I think that's a noble thing. Being a team player and caring for others are admirable qualities and worth celebrating, even if sometimes they need to be tempered by better boundaries. So learn to say no, but don't beat yourself up in the process. Finally, my last bit of advice is that learning to say no is a skill, and it requires practice. Like any skill, making space won't feel easy at first, but with knowledge and experience, it will become more natural. If you really want to explore this further and truly master the skills of saying no for a greater yes, well then I'd love you to download my free ebook and audiobook. The audiobook can be listened to in just 1 hour and it's narrated by yours truly. You'll discover my 3-step formula for how to reset your life and make space for a greater yes. It's totally free and it's my gift to you. Visit spacemakers.au/no. Where's that button? spacemakers.au/no. And hey, if you've learned something helpful from this video, I would love you to like and subscribe to my channel. You know the deal. It's super helpful to have new subscribers, particularly as I'm starting out in YouTube, and it'll help you keep an eye on the next video that comes out, which is about how to say no like a pro with 7 smart strategies. I'm going to talk about how to actually build smart strategies in your life so that you can say no in a mature, professional, and relational way in lots of different circumstances. But until next time, make space.
No.